Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast. This episode is brought to you by adamandeve.com. If you go to adamandeve.com and type in the promo code football, you'll get 50% off just about any item. I'm your host, Jesse Tapia, and to start off today's show, we're going to go over the scores, stats, and we're just going to get started with that. So the Vikings played the Browns in London this weekend. Vikings came away with the win 33-16. Case Keenum had 288 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Jerick McKinnon had 14 carries, 50 yards, 1 touchdown. And Adam Thielen had 5 receptions, 98 yards, and a touchdown. And it's progress for the Browns. Even though they lost, they managed to keep Deshaun Kaiser in the whole game, and that's actually it's a really good thing because every time the last few games they've been switching him out with other quarterbacks, and that really can kill Ricky's confidence. So that's a good thing that they kept him in for the whole game this time. Next game up, Oakland at Buffalo. Oakland lost to Buffalo 34-14. Derek Carr threw for 313 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Tyrod Taylor had 165 yards, 1 touchdown. That 1 touchdown was the former Raider Andre Holmes, who had 3 receptions and 51 yards. LaShawn McCoy had 27 carries, 151 yards, and a touchdown. And then Buffalo's defense came away with a fumble and returned that back for a touchdown. Oakland was really never in the game, and Buffalo just dominated from start to finish. Next game, Indianapolis went to Cincinnati and lost 24-23. Jacoby Brissett had 2 touchdowns with 1 interception, and that came at the last drive for them when they were trying to come back. Andy Dalton finished the game with 243 yards and 2 touchdowns, with one of them being to A.J. Green. The Chargers went into Foxborough and lost to the Patriots 21-13. Tom Brady finished with 333 yards, 1 touchdown. Melvin Gordon had 132 yards and 1 touchdown. And the defense, New England's defense, is finally starting to play how everyone expected them to. So we'll see how that goes. Chicago went into New Orleans and lost 20-12. Mark Ingram had 1 touchdown, but also had 2 fumbles, which could have hurt the team. But the Bears offense really didn't do much to capitalize. Mitch Trubisky had 164 yards and 1 interception, and those stats really don't reflect his play. He's able to make the throws, so once the Bears start allowing him to throw the ball a lot more, I expect the stats to go up way better. And a sad note on that game, Zach Miller dislocated his knee, or actually not so sad anymore. Zach Miller dislocated his knee, and this morning surgeons were working to fix it in order so they wouldn't have to amputate it, and the surgery was successful, so that's good for him. And Atlanta came into New York, faced off with the Jets. They won 25-20. Atlanta won. Matt Ryan finished with 252 yards, 2 touchdowns. Josh McCown had 257 yards with 2 touchdowns. And Atlanta, even though they won, they still didn't look as good as they should. They have a lot of weapons on the offensive side, so they need to start playing a lot better. San Francisco went into Philadelphia, lost that game 33-10. Carson Wentz finished the game with 211 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Even though he threw an interception, that really doesn't do much to hurt his MVP campaign. I still think he's the early front runner for it, and if he keeps winning and playing well, then I don't see why he won't win it, but we'll see. San Francisco is now 0-8, and this is the worst start in the franchise history, so they got that going for them. And Carolina went into Tampa Bay, won 17-3. That game was pretty boring, if we're being honest here. It wasn't that good of a game. Cam Newton finished with 154 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 interception, and Jameis Winston really didn't do much for Tampa Bay. So, 17-3. Carolina came out with that one. Dallas went into Washington, won that game 33-19. Ezekiel Elliott finished with 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kirk Cousins had 263 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. And Dez Bryant continues to struggle against the top corners in the league. I'm not sure what it is, if the corners are that good or just Dez Bryant can't handle them. But yeah, he seems to struggle. I mean, Josh Norman didn't cover him constantly throughout the game, but just Dez does not seem to do well once he's up against good, solid corners. And then The game of the week, which we'll talk about in a few moments, was Houston at Seattle. Seattle came away with that one with a touchdown with about 20 seconds left to pull away with a 41-38 win. Deshaun Watson had 402 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He had 67 yards rushing also. DeAndre Hopkins finished with 224 yards receiving and 1 touchdown. And Russell Wilson had 452 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. And Jimmy Graham caught the game-winning touchdown at the end. And as for the Sunday night game, the Steelers won 20-15. Matt Stafford, he did well to pass the ball that game. He got a lot of yards, but Pittsburgh kept him out of the end zone. They did well to hold their ground. It wasn't much of a great game, but if you like defense, then it was a good game for you. Pittsburgh finished it off with the win, like I said, and now they're 6-2, and Detroit is 3-4. So let's talk about some of the games. Let's get a little more in depth. First off, I want to start off with this Houston and Seattle game. That was probably best game of the season so far. It was exciting. It was back and forth, gunslinging, and a shootout was just, like I said, just back and forth. Houston would score, then Seattle would come right back and score. It was just an exciting game all around. Deshaun Watson, this was pretty much like, we all knew like he's been doing well in the season and all that, but this was like his coming out game right here. This is like, you know what, yeah, this kid's going to be a good quarterback going forward, and Houston finally has their quarterback that they need. Still don't get why they started Tom Savage week 1. I mean, I don't know if Bill O'Brien, what he was trying to do, but yeah, now that Watson's out there, Houston's looking like a totally different team. That offense is explosive. Will Fuller last year, he really didn't have all that good of a year, but this year he's got about, I think, 7 touchdowns on 11 catches, so that's about as efficient as you get. And Watson is doing well to get the ball out into his chest and just Watson's throwing the deep ball well. And Fuller's a really fast guy, so that's going to benefit him. And then DeAndre Hopkins, he scored on a screenplay in the fourth quarter, I believe it was. He took it about 70 yards or around there and scored. And it was just, like I said, back and forth. The Seahawks defense did come away with 3 interceptions, but Deshaun Watson was just, it was incredible how he was playing. He was just completing everything, and he was just carving up the defense. Richard Sherman came away with 2 picks. Actually, yeah, one of those picks for Watson, it was kind of I believe it was at the end. Yeah, he threw the pick, and it was really like a garbage time type of pick, I guess, because I wasn't expecting Houston to drive down with the little time they had left. But yeah, other than that, Richard Sherman had a pretty good game with his 2 interceptions. I believe those were his first 2 interceptions of the season. So yeah, he finally got going. And like I said, it was just a shootout throughout. Russell Wilson, that guy is incredible when it's crunch time. I don't know what, it's something about him that just turns on during the game when it's fourth quarter, because it looked like Houston was going to pull it out, but just Wilson kept coming back, and I believe they had no timeouts on their last drive, and it was only about 50 seconds they were working with, and boom, Wilson was just bullets, just hitting his receivers. Paul Richardson had a big game. I believe he had 2 touchdowns, and he had a big catch on that last drive too. And once Seattle got around to the 30 or 20 yard line, I believe, they were rushing. I was expecting them to spike, and they didn't, and they ran a play, and the Houston tried running a zone defense, but I'm not sure if it was miscommunication by the secondary or linebackers, because Jimmy Graham basically ran a fade route or a streak down the middle, uncovered in the end zone, and Russell Wilson just, all he had to do was throw just a easy pass to him, and boom, that was the game right there, 41-38. But like I said, it was a really fun game, probably best game of the year so far, and Deshaun Watson, he's going to be a guy that everyone needs to watch out for going forward. Richard Sherman, I believe it was after the game or Monday morning, where he said that Deshaun Watson he's going to be a top 5 quarterback next season, and he's going to be in that tier with Brady and Rodgers. And I'm not ready to say that he's going to be a top 5, but he is going to be a top 10 quarterback, I think, next year. He's showing all the tools, and he's a gamer, man. Ever since we even saw in Clemson, he loves the big moments and he can handle them. And as a rookie quarterback, that's probably the best that you can do, because you're going to come down to some pressure, and it's going to come down to whether or not you're going to fold or you're going to accept it and do work. And he did work. So yeah, it was a really good game throughout. And next game I want to talk about is the Cowboys and Redskins game. This game wasn't a close game by any means or anything like that. It was 33-19, Dallas winning, but Ezekiel Elliott had probably one of his best games of the season with 150 yards or 151 yards and 2 TDs. But the biggest thing about that is Monday, Ezekiel Elliott has his hearing, and the judge could rule that, you know what, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead with the suspension, and Zeke could be suspended for 6 games, but he also has the opportunity to appeal, so we're gonna see how that goes. Dallas really can't afford to lose Zeke right now because they're starting to get going. Looks like they're starting to find their groove again, and if they lose Zeke, then that's just gonna mess everything up. Dak Prescott is a good quarterback, but he's even better when he's got Zeke in his backfield. Excuse me. But yeah, like I said, he's even better when he's got Zeke in his backfield. Because if you don't have Zeke back there, I mean, Alfred Morris, Darren McFadden, and even Rod Smith. Rod Smith is someone that, if Zeke does get suspended, he's someone I keep my eye on because he did well in the preseason when I watched him, and he's pretty productive when he's out there too, when he gets his chance. So yeah, but if Zeke leaves, then it's really going to be difficult for Dallas's offense to keep the same amount of production going because they're just going to force the Cowboys to run with McFadden or Morris, and like I said, they're just not on Zeke's level at all. And Dak Prescott, he's a quarterback. He makes good throws and whatnot, but I feel like I said earlier, he's just a guy who plays really well when he's got a running game to back him up. It's like, sort of like in San Francisco with Colin Kaepernick. I'm not saying Colin Kaepernick and Dak Prescott are the same type of quarterbacks or anything like that. I believe Dak Prescott is better than Kaepernick, but back when Kaepernick was doing well with San Francisco, he had Frank Gore right there, and Frank Gore kept the defense on their toes, so which allowed Kaepernick to be freed up a lot more and do more, and like defenses wouldn't really cover for Kaepernick to throw. They'd be more stacking the box for Frank Gore, and that's pretty much what defenses do for Zeke. They'll stack the box and force Dak to throw, and Dak's a good quarterback. He's able to make those throws, but with Zeke possibly being out, then it's not really an ideal situation for them because now they're going to start playing more coverage and stuff like that, and now they're going to force Alfred Morris and Darren McFadden to beat them, and I don't think that they can. But yeah, that was a good game. And then another game that I found pretty interesting was Chicago at New Orleans. It was a 20-12 game. Will Lutz was pretty much the MVP for the Saints. He kicked around, I think it was 2 extra points and I think 2 field goals or 3 field goals. Yeah, so it was around there, and that's how they got their 20 along with the Mark Ingram touchdown. But I want to talk a little about Mitch Trubisky. So everyone's been talking about he's not really throwing the ball that much, and his stats aren't that high. He's not getting touchdowns. But if you watch the game, he's making like really great throws, and that's really what should impress you about him. He's not gonna have all kinds of crazy stats. He's not going to throw for 300 a game, 3 touchdowns, or anything like that this season because I feel like Chicago is just trying to ease him in. And plus, they have Jordan Howard, and he's doing really well this season with the workload that he's getting. He's getting about 25 to 30 carries a game around there. And like I said, he's doing really well. And they got Tariq Cohen out there out of the backfield, and he's really good receiving back. So that's a good weapon for Trubisky to have. And plus, Trubisky's receivers aren't really they're not all that great. I mean, they have talent and stuff like that, but they're not top receivers by any means. McBride had a pretty good game this past against New Orleans, but like I said, they're not really blow the top off you type of guys. So as far as Trubisky goes, I feel like we should more be paying attention to the throws he's making rather than his stats because he's not going to get a lot of opportunities to throw the ball. But there was a play where it kind of ended pretty sour because it's where Zach Miller dislocated his knee, but Trubisky threw Zach Miller ran a corner route to the end zone, and Trubisky fitted it in there perfectly. And the only reason they didn't come away with a touchdown is exactly that, because Zach Miller dislocated his knee. And personally, I thought it was a touchdown. I thought he came down and caught it and whatnot, but the refs thought different because once he came down and had possession, he realized his leg was pretty much dangling off. It wasn't connected to his knee, so he dropped the ball at the end. But like I said, I still think he had possession throughout, and then once after that, he dropped the ball. But yeah, but Zach Miller, his leg they did surgery, and it went well for him, so that's good. But yeah, Trubisky, he's going to be a good quarterback going forward. Next season is really when I would expect for his stats to go up and just pretty much he's not going to be, I don't think he's as good as Deshaun Watson, but I think he's the second best quarterback in this draft class so far. But yeah, other games that intrigued me was, let's go Philadelphia. I know they played the Niners and stuff, but this was like sort of like I feel like a trap game almost because San Francisco hasn't won a game so far, and their defense San Francisco has a good defense. That's not the problem with them. The problem is that the offense cannot score points, so the defense is always on the field, and that's why they're losing games. The offense just does not help them out at all. So with Carson Wentz going up against a really good defense, he did well. He did throw a pick, but Other than that, he threw for 211 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the Eagles won again. So, like I said earlier, Carson Wentz is my early MVP pick for this season. And actually, later on in the show, we'll do some midseason awards for the NFL. But yeah, Carson Wentz played well. The Eagles are 7-1, and like I said, San Francisco's 0-8. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this first segment. There's a lot of good games going on this past weekend. But yeah, that's gonna be it. So we're gonna take a quick break and. Hey, are you looking to spice things up in the bedroom? Have you been fantasizing about surprising your lover with an adventurous new toy or adult movie? Well, Adam and Eve has an offer that you're not going to be able to resist. If you go to adamandeve.com and for a limited time only, you'll get 50% off just about any item. But that's not all they're offering. Oh no, trust me. When you select that one item at 50% off, you're also going to receive 3 free adult DVDs, for that little inspiration, just in case. Plus a free extra gift so essential that I can't even mention it on this podcast. And to top all that off, they're even going to throw in free shipping, and we all know how we love that free shipping. And plus, it's on your entire order. And no, they're not kidding about any of this. So go to adamandeve.com today for this special offer. You're going to get 50% off one item when you type in the promo code FOOTBALL. That's FOOTBALL upon checkout. When you do that, you're going to get 3 free DVDs, the free extra gift, and that free shipping. So just use the offer code FOOTBALL, FOOTBALL at adamandeve.com. Again, that's FOOTBALL, football at adamandeve.com. All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. For this next segment, I want to talk about the Oakland Raiders. They're a team that many predicted would go to the Hastings Championship and even be Super Bowl contenders, but so far this season they haven't looked the part. So I want to go a little bit in depth into what's going on with them and all that stuff. So let's start with Marshawn Lynch. Okay, he was brought in, and you sort of think with how he's been playing so far this season, how Oakland has been utilizing him, you sort of think, maybe they brought him in just because they're moving to Vegas in a couple of years, and Oakland, the city of Oakland, they love Marshawn. You could tell, you could see it, whether it's the fans at the games or in the videos that he posts and all that stuff that they're doing for him. So yeah, Marshawn Lynch, I was expecting him to come in and be beast mode. I thought they were going to give him the ball a lot and he was going to help out Derek Carr and all that stuff, but he's really not being utilized all that much. He's not getting the ball that much. They're using DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard a lot. As far as those two aren't running the ball really all that much, but they're out there receiving the ball out of the backfield, and I feel like Jack Del Rio needs to utilize Marshawn Lynch more if they did truly bring him in to help out this team, because he's not a bad running back and he's not old. I mean, I guess running back years, yeah, he's like about 30, 31, I think, but he took 2 years off, so he shouldn't be all that wear and tear. But yeah, I feel like they need to start giving him the ball more. You have the offensive line to do it, and I know he was suspended this past week, so obviously they couldn't do anything with him. But going forward, I feel like they need to start giving him the ball more. He's not a bad running back. He still runs hard with his head down. And like I said a few seconds ago, they have the offensive line for it. That's one of the best offensive lines in football. You see in Dallas, they have a great offensive line, and boom, Zeke gets the ball constantly. I'm not saying Marshawn is on the same level as Zeke or anything like that, but you need to follow that blueprint, okay? Derek Carr, he's a great quarterback right now. And why not take a little bit off of his plate and have Marshawn rush about maybe 15, 20 times a game? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. He's a great running back, and yeah, they just need to start giving him the ball more. I understand they want to run like this quick, fast offense and stuff like that, but you need to do what's going to be best for the team. And I feel like if they were to start getting Marshawn going a lot more, it's going to take a lot more off of Derek Carr. And that might even open up some room for Amari Cooper, who hasn't had really that good of a season. And that's another thing I want to talk about. Amari Cooper has been mostly hit or miss this season. He had his 201-yard game along with 2 touchdowns against Kansas City week 7. But, I mean, other than that, he's had so-so games so far this season. It's been mostly bad than good. I think he's had probably about two solid games. And the rest have just been... It's been disappointing. I mean, he's a good receiver. He's just, his hands, I don't know what's going on with him. He just drops the ball constantly, and he just hasn't shown up this season. other than a couple of games. Crabtree's a solid receiver too, but Cooper is the number one on that team. Okay, he's the deep threat and he's the explosive receiver, and he's exactly what he was brought in for. He's brought in for Derek Carr. Okay, I mean, I think Cooper was drafted in the first round before Carr, but I'm sure they had drafted Cooper with the idea, you know what, we're going to draft Derek Carr next round, and this is going to be the 1-2 punch right here. Okay, and this season it just hasn't worked out. I mean, he's been a disappointment just all around. I'm sure. I know it's fantasy football or whatever, but I'm sure people drafted him second, third rounds, expecting him to have a breakout season or a solid season. And so far he's just been disappointing. But yeah, I'm not sure really sure what it is. If his head's not there, if he's just not confident in himself, because he's just dropping passes and just not getting open, or just, I'm not sure what it is. He's just got to figure it out, because in order for this team to pick it up going forward, they need him to pick up his production, because if he doesn't, then this team really isn't set for the playoffs or anything like that. Right now I believe they're 3-4, so they already got a big hill to climb, so we'll see. And another thing is Derek Carr really hasn't looked all that good so far. I mean, yeah, I know he fractured his back, and that might be a reason as to why he hasn't looked so good this far. EJ Manuel isn't a quarterback that's going to be able to win him football games or anything like that. They need Carr, so that's another thing with Marshawn Lynch. If his back is so hurting, give the ball to Marshawn, have him run the ball more, take the load off of Carr's shoulders, because I doubt he's 100% healthy right now. There's no way he is. He fractured his back. There's no way he's 100% healthy. So they need to take some off his shoulders and start giving the ball to Marshawn more in order to help Carr be successful. Because against Buffalo, he looked lost. I know the game was wet and rainy and whatnot, but I mean, if you're going to be a team that's going to challenge for the Super Bowl or even try and make it to the AFC Championship game, you got to win these big games against good teams if you want to be taken seriously. The Raiders are very disappointing this season. I expected them to be in the AFC Championship this year along with many other people, and they just simply haven't showed up so far. You think after the KC game, after the Kansas City game, I was thinking, and along with probably many others, thinking, okay, you know what, the Raiders might be back. So, you know what, let's see how they go. And then they come into Buffalo, and Buffalo just wipes the floor with them. Buffalo's defense was just causing trouble the whole game, and Oakland's defense also is just, they're terrible so far this season. They're just really bad. The corners are getting burnt on every single play pretty much. They can't do much. Khalil Mack, he can't do everything, so that's probably why you've seen a drop in production from him, because he's always constantly out there, but teams are now game planning for him a lot more and double and even maybe sometimes triple teaming him, and it's just the defense needs to step up also and do their job. You're professional football players. You're there for a reason, so you need to start stepping it up. But I'm not sure. I mean, the Raiders coming up, the Raiders got a tough schedule. Like I said, they're 3-4 right now. They're not even in a wild card spot, and they have a tough schedule. They got Sunday night against Miami. That game's a winnable game for them, because Miami's offense is just, it's the worst in the league right now. So it's really going to come down to, it's honestly, Oakland's defense is actually really bad too. So this might just cancel it out. It's going to be whoever scores. It's going to be whichever offense is more productive. And as of right now, Miami's defense they're not the best, but they're looking pretty solid. So they get pressure to the quarterback, and the rookie corner Cordrea Tankersley and Xavier Howard was in his second year. They're playing pretty well. So Derek Carr is going to have to step up his game, and the defense is going to have to just make sure that they keep Miami as the worst offense in the league. They need to watch out for J.J. and stop him, because it's looking like Jay Cutler's going to start that game, and he hasn't really looked all too good this season. So we'll see about that. And then they have New England at home, which is another game that they're going to have to win. If they want to, they're going to see. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They have 8 games left. Okay, I think in order for them to make playoffs, they're going to need to win at least 6 of those 8 games. And let me go over the teams they're playing. We talked about Miami first. Then they got New England. Then they got Denver. Then they got the Giants. Then they're at Kansas City. And then Dallas at home. And then they have to head to Philly, and then they have to head to LA against the Chargers. Against Miami, that's a game that they can pull out right there. New England is going to be a tough one, but they're at home, and the fans are always good for momentum and building the team up. Denver is going to be a tough one because of that defense, but Denver's offense isn't really looking all too good this season, so it's another game Oakland has a chance of pulling out. I think they'll for sure get a win against the Giants, because the Giants they're not that good of a team, or they're not what we expected them to be this season. And heading to KC, I think they'll lose that one, because it's just they're in the top tier right now. KC is with Pittsburgh and New England. Those are the 3 teams that are going to be competing for a Super Bowl, I think, and 2 out of those 3 teams, I think, are going to be in the AFC Championship. So I don't really like Oakland's chances going to KC. And Dallas, I mean, if Zeke does not get suspended or he appeals, let's say he does lose his hearing, but he appeals, he could be playing that game. So Dallas's offense is something really that Oakland's defense can't handle. Dallas's offense with Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott. And that's just the truth right there. Their defense is really terrible. And then they have to head to Philly, and playing in Philly is just awful for away teams because those fans are crazy. And plus, Carson Wentz is playing like an MVP candidate this season, and Philly's also 7-1. And that offense is just, it's high-powered right now. They got Wendell Smallwood, who's a quick little speedy guy out the backfield, and then when they need to punch it in for a touchdown or get those little 3rd-and-1s for the first down, they got LeGarrette Blount. And then they'll be heading to L.A. against the Chargers for the last game of the season, and for that, I mean, I think they can handle the Chargers, but like I said, this is a tough stretch. They got they got 3 divisional games, and then they got about 2 games against teams from the top tier. So they're only really true games where they need to win and pull them out is against Miami, Denver, and the Giants. Those other and the Chargers. Yeah, I'll give you the Chargers too at the end of the year. But other than that, against New England, Kansas City, Dallas, and Philly, those are going to be tough games, and they're going to have to win probably about 3 out of those 4 games right there. And I'm not sure what the Raiders are going to do because I'm not sure if they've had their bye yet, but they need to figure it out soon. Jack Del Rio needs to start giving the ball to Marshawn more, and Derek Carr him and Cooper just need to get on the same page because Michael Crabtree's out there doing his job. He's playing really well this season. He's pretty much like a blanket for Derek Carr. Whenever Derek Carr is under pressure or anything like that, boom, you go straight to the blanket, which is Michael Crabtree. Throw him the ball and Crabtree's going to come down with it, just like that Kansas City game, which was a wild game. That was a weird ending, actually. But like I said, you go to Crabtree when you need those crucial first downs. But it's really not going to work unless the defense can, I'm not expecting them to pick up their play and be a top defense or anything. Just play a little bit better than what you are already. You can't be any worse than how you are right now. So they need to pick it up, and Amari Cooper just needs to get his head in the game and become more confident and catch these footballs that are thrown to him and get more open and get separation, because if it's not, then it's not going to work for the Raiders this season, and it's just going to be a big disappointment. This team should be competing near the top. They should be in that top tier with Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, and New England. They should be up there with them, but now they're with teams like Miami and Jacksonville and Baltimore. They're just fighting for that last wild card spot, because I'm not sure if they're going to be able to catch up to Buffalo for that 5th spot, because I'm just going to call it now. I think New England's going to win the AFC East, and Buffalo's going to get one of those wild card spots, and then it's going to be a fight for the 6th spot. And I don't really see Oakland coming back and winning a ton of games and challenging Kansas City, because I really like Kansas City for that winning that division. So I think it's going to come down to that 6th wildcard spot, so they better pick up their play or else they're going to miss the playoffs, and all they have left is just the year after before they move to Vegas. And I know it'd be a huge disappointment for the city, because I know the city's expecting them to at least challenge for a Super Bowl. They've waited so long for a good team, and let me say this, Oakland fans are probably the best fans in all of football. And you could say that for a lot of other sports. Oakland fans, they care about their team deeply. They'll show up. I remember going to Raider games with my dad and whatnot to watch the Dolphins play and stuff like that. And Oakland fans, this is when Oakland wasn't a good football team, but they're out there selling out games, just being there. They're supporting the team, so the team needs to go out there and produce for the fans, because once they go to Vegas, Oakland is not going to have the same type of fan base that they do here in Oakland. Okay, the Vegas fans, they might be okay, but they won't compare to the Oakland Raider fans. And that's the thing about Raider fans too. They're fans of Oakland Raiders, not the Las Vegas Raiders. So they really need to step it up and do it for them. But we'll see how they do for the rest of the season. Like I said, it's going to come down to whether the defense wants to play better than how they are, because like I said, they can't play any worse. And Amari Cooper just needs to get it together and show them, just play how he did last season. If they do that, I think they might be fine, but we'll see how it goes. And they're going to need to pick it up Sunday night against Miami, so we'll see. But yeah, that's going to do it for that segment, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. For this next segment, I want to talk about the AFC. I want to talk about the AFC this season, and they talk about how it's actually looking kind of weak. Pittsburgh, New England, and KC. Okay, I was thinking yesterday, I was like trying to think of like put teams in different tiers and whatnot. Okay, so in the first tier, I'm going to put Pittsburgh, New England, and Kansas City. Okay, those are looking like the best teams, and it's really, you can't really say anything else about them. It's true. Those are the three top teams right there. And then there's Buffalo, who I put them in the second tier by themselves, but a couple of teams in the third tier, they're not really far off behind. But yeah, Buffalo's 5-2 right now. The defense is playing lights out. And Tyrod Taylor, he does well to really put his team in the right position to win games, because Buffalo, they're a team where you need to give the ball to LaShawn McCoy and let him do what he does. And Tyrod Taylor, when you're out there and you're trying to make plays, just don't try and do too much. Just do exactly that. Just do your job and don't throw interceptions, and you'll be fine. And that's pretty much been their recipe for success, and it's worked out well for them so far, and that's why they're 5-2. And then for that third tier, it goes Jacksonville, Miami, Baltimore. And then I'll put Houston in there too, even though they're 3-4, okay? So Jacksonville, their defense is lights out this season. It's just it's probably the best defense in the league. They're fast, they're young, they're just exciting to watch, okay? They get plenty of sacks with Calais Campbell, who I think he has 10 so far this season. I think he's a half sack behind DeMarcus Lawrence for the lead in the season. And then you got Jalen Ramsey and then Barry Church and all those guys in the secondary, and they're just so fast and just ball hawks. They're constant. They hit hard too. They're really fun to watch. And then you got the linebackers with Miles Jack. I think he's top 10 or top 15 in tackles this season, which is I'm really happy about, because I was really high on Miles Jack last year, even though he was injured. So yeah, the defense is playing really well. But yeah, the defense is playing really well. And Leonard Fournette, it's pretty much like the Adrian Peterson team where they made the playoffs. I think Christian Ponder was their quarterback. Okay, they relied on the defense, and Adrian Peterson was pretty much the entire offense, and he pretty much led them. Christian Ponder was not a good quarterback or anything like that. Sorry to say, but it's true. So AP got him to the playoffs along with that defense, and this Jacksonville team reminds me a lot of that team. So Jacksonville is going to be a fun team to watch going forward. It's just Blake Bortles can't make mistakes. Same thing with like how Tyrod Taylor's doing. Just when they ask you to throw the ball, don't turn it over. Just get it to the guy and then let Fournette do the rest. And then Miami is a really weird team so far this season. They have wins against the Chargers, Atlanta, the Jets, and the Titans. And then they have losses against the Jets. And then who else did they lose to? They lost to... Sorry, I'm drawing a blank right here. Oh, yeah, they got blown out by the Ravens Thursday night. And then they got shut out by the Ravens Saints. I'm sorry. Yeah, Saints in London, 20-0. So the Dolphins are really a team that kind of confuses me, because the defense has been playing well so far this season, and that's really what's been keeping them in games, because they really don't score a lot of points except for the game against the Jets where they came back. I think they were down 28-14. Yeah, were down 28-14. They came back and ended up winning 31-28. But yeah, after that game, you think, okay, you know what, maybe, you know what, they threw Matt Moore in there. Maybe they're finally starting to figure it out, and then boom, Thursday night comes, and you're kind of optimistic about them, and then the Ravens they beat the brakes off of them, basically 40-0. Miami had no chance. That offense was it was like a high school offense playing against that NFL team, and that might be putting it generous. So going forward, it looks like Jay Cutler is going to be the starter, and I mean, it's kind of predictable because that's Adam Gase's guy and whatnot. So Yeah, so like I said, that's Adam Gase's guy. So going forward, it's going to be Jake Cutler looking to start against Sunday night against the Raiders. So they really just need to figure out the offense. Adam Gase has said multiple times that he simplified it down so much where the defense could decipher. We'll open it up a little bit more, and if Jake Cutler can't handle that, then don't throw him out there and have Matt Moore out there. There's nothing for that team to lose. No one's expecting him to go far in the playoffs or anything like that because Ryan Tannehill's out. And I know people have their thoughts about Tannehill, but he's a solid quarterback for that team, and he probably had his best year of his career last year until he tore his ACL. So. Yeah, Miami's a weird team, but they're going to be competing for that 6th wild card spot. And then there's Baltimore. Baltimore I'm not sure about them either. They're sort of like Miami, except the defense is better. Their offense really hasn't really been doing all that good this season, and they've Jeremy Maclin, Mike Wallace, and Brashad Perryman have all dealt with injuries so far this season. Mike Wallace and Brashad Perryman have had concussions, and then Maclin has been dealing with a shoulder injury, and Joe Flacco actually left last Thursday's game out with a concussion because Kiko Alonso hit him in the head with his shoulder. But I mean, it's debatable on whether or not it was a dirty play or what. Flacco did slide late, but like I said, that's just up for debate, and we're not sure if he's going to be back this week or whatnot. So. So Baltimore, their team, they're always going to be in it just because it's Baltimore and they play hard-nosed football, and Alex Collins has been a solid running back for them. And like I said, their defense is always going to keep them in it. And then there's Houston, who's 3-4 right now. And I think that if they're going to make the playoffs, it's going to be through the division. I don't think it's going to be through the wild card. So Deshaun Watson has been playing really well so far. He's by far the best rookie quarterback so far this season, and he's just getting better as each game goes. I talked a little bit earlier in the show about his game against Seattle, and he did throw 3 picks, but like I said, one of them came late in a drive where they really couldn't do much, and the other 2 were just good plays by Richard Sherman in the secondary. So, but he did throw for about, I think it was around 430 yards, I think, and he did have 4 touchdowns. So he's going to be a quarterback. That offense is looking explosive. If J.J. Watt and Whitney Merciless wouldn't have went down with their injuries, then I'm sure right now Houston would be in that division, leading the division right now. So we'll see how they do so far. And as far as it did say that it was Jacksonville, Miami, Baltimore, and Houston in that 3rd tier. But I'm going to throw Oakland in there, even though they're 3-5, because Oakland, we all know what they can do. They showed us last year. If Derek Carr wouldn't have went down with that injury, then I'm sure they would have beat Houston in that playoff game, and they could have even made it to the AFC Championship possibly. But there's no doubt in my mind that they could have beat Houston. So I was talking in the second segment earlier about how Oakland really hasn't showed up really this season. Amari Cooper isn't looking like his self from last year, and then Marshawn Lynch is looking like a publicity stunt. He hasn't really done much so far this season, and doesn't look like Jack Del Rio is really going to change the offense for him when he probably should, because Marshawn Lynch is a good running back and that defense is really bad. But like I said, they're 3-5 right now. I mean, they need to figure some things out before they can start. I don't know. Oakland needs to figure it out. They're a good team. It's just I'm not sure what it is with them, but we'll see how they go. And then there's the 4th tier where you could put the Jets, Cincinnati, and then the Chargers. And you can throw Denver in there too. Denver was a team that we weren't really sure how that offense was going to play out because of Trevor Siemian. We're not sure what kind of quarterback he truly is and whatnot. But that offensive line has been terrible this season. So, I mean, Siemian hasn't really had a chance to really show what he can do. He got weapons like Emmanuel Sanders, Demaryius Thomas, and C.J. Anderson is a solid back. And Jamal Charles he's not playing a lot or anything like that, but when he gets carries, he does well with the ball. And that defense hasn't looked as scary as it has the last few years, but I feel like that has to do more with the offense than it does with themselves not playing well. Okay, when your defense is out there constantly, it's not a good recipe for success. They're gonna get tired because they're all humans. Okay, Von Miller, believe it or not, one of the best DNs in the league, probably the best. You can call him outside linebacker if you want. Doesn't really matter to me, but he's one of the best in the league, and he's been solid this year. But like I said, when he's out there constantly trying to get to the quarterback and whatnot, you're going to get tired, and your defense they're going to slow down. The offense needs to figure out a way to where the offensive line can be in a good position to make solid blocks and all that, because if they're not, then Denver really doesn't have a chance at going for that 6th wildcard spot. They're only 3-3 right now, so they're not far off, but it's like the wildcard spot is more leaving them than they are getting closer to it. So Denver needs to figure it out in order to move up into that 3rd tier. And then there's the Jets. The Jets, they've already exceeded expectations. No one really expected them to win too many games this season. They've already won 3. They're 3-5 right now, and you know what? They're competing. And that's all you could really ask for from Todd Bowles as a coach. Okay, the defense, it's really, I don't want to say it's a no-name defense, but like it is, okay? They have Jamal Adams, and I forgot, what's the other? Jamal Adams and Marcus May. Okay, those guys, they're solid safeties for the Jets. Other than that, I couldn't tell you really. It's a no-name defense, okay? But they do their job well. Okay, the linebackers, they fill the gaps. The D-line, they do well putting pressure to the quarterback, and that's all you can ask. As a defense, all you need is for you to do your job. Linebackers, fill your gaps. And when you're running zone for the secondary, okay, run your zone, stick with the guy that's in there. If not, if you're running man, stick with your guy, and that's exactly what they're doing. The defense has been playing well this season. It's just the offense just isn't good enough to where they can win those games because they're all close and stuff. But like I said, they were up 14 points to Miami, and they blew that in the second half. And then they were beating the Patriots 14-0, and they couldn't sustain that. And then they were hanging with the Falcons. I mean, yeah, the Falcons haven't looked as strong this season, but I mean, it's Atlanta. They were in the Super Bowl last season, so they're not a bad team, but the Jets are competing. So I guess this whole little rebuild thing is going way better than expected. And then there's Cincinnati, they're in that third tier, but there's a good chance that they fall off into the bottom because they really haven't looked good this season. I'm not sure if it's because they're just tired of playing for Marvin Lewis and whatnot, and I'm not out here trying to spread rumors. I'm just giving my thoughts, but Marvin Lewis is just, I feel like he's overstayed his welcome there. Okay. They're not going to, they're not making the playoffs this year. I'm going to call that right now. Cincinnati is not making the playoffs right now. It's not a big call or anything like that. It's probably what the majority thinks, but yeah, they're not going anywhere this season. And I feel like the offense just doesn't look that good. Joe Mixon is so, and the offensive line has been terrible this season. So that's another reason why Joe Mixon probably hasn't looked as good as we all thought he would coming out of college. And AJ Green, he's second in the league in reception yards, or at least he was before week 8. And I feel like Andy Dalton needs to start force-feeding him like Ben Roethlisberger does to Antonio Brown, okay? AJ Green is a top-tier receiver in the league, that's no doubt. So when you have a guy like that on your team, you need to get him at least 10 targets a game no matter what. Even if it's just good for both. It's going to keep him happy. He knows he's getting the ball. And every time you throw to your best receiver as a quarterback, dude, it's going to just build up that relationship. I'm sure they already have a solid one, but it's just going to build a better connection for them. Andy Dalton needs to start force-feeding the ball to A.J. Green, and that's how that offense will be successful. The defense, they do their job just like the Jets, okay? Vontae's perfect. Everyone has their thoughts about him, whether or not, but he's still a solid linebacker, and he does well. And the defense just is what keeps them in games like most teams so far in the AFC. So the offense just needs to figure it out, but I don't think they will this season. I feel like they're going to fall off, and I think this might be it for Marvin Lewis this season, but we'll see. And then there's the fourth tier with Cleveland and Indianapolis. Or actually, I forgot about the Chargers. The Chargers, I feel so bad for Phillip Rivers. That guy has done so much for that franchise and all that. But for some reason, they just can't get it done for him, okay? Because Phillip Rivers, the fact that they haven't won many playoff games lately or even been to the playoffs or just been all that great of a team is not because of him. It's just because of the people around him, okay? Keenan Allen, last couple of years, this is the first year he's actually been healthy. And the years before that, he was just hurt constantly. So Phillip Rivers really didn't have much this year. Williams, who was a solid receiver for them last year, he isn't doing all too well this season. And it's just the Chargers are just a weird team for me. Phillip Rivers is always going to help them win games, so they're just not going to be in that bottom tier with Cleveland or Indianapolis or anything like that. But it's just, you feel bad for the guy because he plays his heart out, but that door is closing for him, and it's not looking good. So, and then for the bottom tier, Indianapolis and Cleveland. I can't remember which reporter said it, but he reported that Andrew Luck, his shoulder injury might be worse than everyone expected because he was throwing, I think, about a week ago or a couple of weeks ago, and he was experiencing more discomfort, and he's not really sure why. So he's going to see a specialist, and they're not really. And this reporter said that, again, I can't believe I can't remember his name, but yeah, he said that he's not sure if Andrew Luck is going to be able to come back from it. And Andrew Luck, when he's out there, he's a top 5 quarterback. It's not really up for debate. He took them to the AFC Championship game, and yeah, they just got blown out by the Patriots. But I mean, he's never really had a solid team around him. He's got T.Y. Hilton, and that's just about it. But yeah, he's never had a solid team around him. He's always been able, when he did play, or when he does play, because he's not retired yet, but yeah, when he does play, he does well to put the team in position to win games. And it's just, if the Colts end up don't getting him back, and if they don't get him back, then it's really back to square one for them. And then Cleveland, I'm not really sure what goes on in that front office. I mean, you got Hugh Jackson out here playing quarterback roulette. I mean, this past game against Minnesota, he finally kept Kaiser for the whole game. But if you draft the guy to be your number one quarterback going forward, then you know what? If you're going to throw him out there, then keep him out there. He's going to make mistakes and he's not going to play well. But that's just how most rookie quarterbacks are. It feels like when Hugh Jackson was switching out these quarterbacks, he's more coaching for his job rather than trying to help the team win or help the team develop. Because they don't have good offensive weapons. Corey Coleman's out on IR, I believe, and then, like I said, I mean, Josh Gordon is like that name you really can't say, but we're not sure when he's ever going to come back. So I think Ricardo Lewis is their top receiver right now, and Isaiah Crowell has just been really disappointing. So the Browns are the Browns, so we'll see if they figure it out or if they just stick to being the Browns. But yeah, that's going to do it for this segment. We're going to come back later in a few, and we're going to talk some midseason awards. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. For this segment, we're going to talk some midseason awards, and we're going to talk about pretty much the rest of the season and how these people that I pick for these midseason awards, like how I expect them to do for the rest of the season. All right, so for MVP, we'll start off with that since that's the most important. My pick right now for the midseason award for MVP is Carson Wentz. Right now, he's second in the league in passing yards with 2,063. And he's first in touchdowns with 19, and his team is 7-1. So far this year, Carson Wentz has looked outstanding. Last year, he was a second pick quarterback. Jared Goff was before him, and right now, he's already probably the best quarterback out of last year's draft class just from what he's shown so far this year. I know Dak Prescott and him really go head-to-head since they're in the same division, and people like to compare them a lot, but Dak Prescott is a good quarterback, but I just feel like right now, out of that last draft class from last season, Wentz right now is playing the best out of everyone. And it's really not up for debate right now. He's got his team out there 7-1. He's out here making plays. I think it was against Washington Monday night. I think it was believe it was last week, week 7. Yeah, Wentz was out there and he was about to get sacked, and he comes out of the sack and he's able to come up with a first down. It's just plays like that. Those are MVP plays right there. Okay, he's just been throwing the lights out of the ball also. Okay, his deep ball has been looking really good so far this season, and his running game isn't really all that something to write home about. LeGarrette Blount is okay, and Wendell Smallwood has looked okay, but it's really that offense is because of Carson Wentz, and he's the reason why they're 7-1 right now. If I had to pick a runner-up from MVP, I guess I'd have to go with Tom Brady right now, as much as it pains me to say it. But yeah, Tom Brady would be the runner-up for MVP right now. I believe he's first in passing yards, and the only reason I have him as runner-up right now is because the Patriots really haven't looked as dominant as they have in the years before. Okay, it's no secret that Tom Brady is one of the best quarterbacks of all time. I'm not going to say he's the best or whatever because everyone's got an opinion about that, but it's for sure he's the top 3 quarterback, no doubt, at least. So yeah, but this season he's been playing well, but he's just not the offense isn't as explosive as they have been before. Like I said, it's not a knock on Brady. They're still going to win the division and most likely end up in the AFC Championship game, and then from there they could end up in the Super Bowl. But we'll see. We're not really sure. It's too early to call. But yeah, Brady, he's been solid so far this season. But I feel like just Wentz has been better, and Wentz is just more explosive and exciting to watch right now. And plus, his team's got the best record in the league, so you can't really pick against that. As for Offensive Player of the Year, I'm going to go midseason. I'm going to go with Le'Veon Bell. He's first in rushing right now with 760 yards, and he's third in rushing touchdowns with 5. Okay, starting out, like we weren't sure if he was going to hold out or whatever, but he ended up playing week 1, and he's been lights out ever since. He had a fumble, I believe. Yeah, he had a fumble against Detroit, but I mean, that's a rarity in itself, Le'Veon fumbling. And he does, like, my favorite thing about Le'Veon is how he's able to read the holes, and how like he doesn't go in there and just explode through the hole. Okay, he waits, and then boom, he sees his hole, and then boom, he goes through it and explodes. And that's probably his best attribute about him, is just how he's patient. He's able to make good cuts and whatnot. That's why he's just so successful running the ball. He's a patient running back, and if more running backs were like that, then we probably. Yeah, you'd see a lot more better running backs, but that's a trait that not many have, and he's done well to utilize it and just become one of the best. I think Ezekiel Elliott would be my pick for best running back in the league right now, but Le'Veon is right there, and I mean, it's interchangeable. You can make an argument. I could make an argument as to why Le'Veon could be the best in the league, and I can make an argument as to why Zeke could be the best in the league. But yeah, right now, I'm going to go Offensive Player of the Year, Le'Veon Bell. And then my runner-up would actually be another Steeler. It's Antonio Brown. Right now, he's the leader in reception yards, and he only has 3 touchdowns right now. That's why I didn't pick him as my midseason Offensive Player of the Year, is because of his touchdowns are so low. And that probably has to do with the beginning of the season. He really wasn't getting too many targets, or enough. Yeah, he wasn't getting enough targets, okay? As a receiver like that, I think he's the best receiver in the league. I think he's better than Julio. I think he's better than A.J. Green. And... excuse me, but yeah, he wasn't getting enough targets in the beginning of the season. Once Ben started force feeding him, that's when you see his reception yards starting to come up, and he's starting to score a lot more. I think last game he only had 70 receiving yards, and for him that's not really a good game, but I mean, it's still solid. So yeah, he's my runner-up right now, and that could change, and maybe even Kareem Hunt, the rookie, could come out and take that, because he's been solid so far this season too. And I think he's right behind Le'Veon in rush yards. I think he's about 45 yards back. Yeah, he's 45 yards back. He's got 715 so far. So, I mean, you could even see Kareem Hunt, the rookie, win Offensive Player in the Year. As for a Defensive Player in the Year, I'm going with DeMarcus Lawrence from Dallas. He's got 10.5 sacks so far. I think he's had a sack in every game he's played so far, which is incredible. And then my runner-up would be Calais Campbell. I don't know if he's got 10 sacks so far, and I don't know if you could tell, I'm a big D lineman guy. So, yeah. I'm going to go with DeMarcus Lawrence. He's just been wreaking havoc so far, and he's always been a solid guy for the Cowboys, but it's just this year he's just broken out and just been explosive. Okay, he gets to the quarterback constantly, and it's just there's nothing really you can do about it when he's out there. And then same with Calais Campbell. Okay, I believe this should be his first year in Jacksonville, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And he's doing well to get to the quarterback also, but with the corners and secondary out there, that gives him more time to get to the quarterback, since they do so well covering, whether it's zone or man. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why Calais Campbell has been so successful this season. I'm going to go ahead and say this is one of his better years of his career. And I feel like, yeah, the secondary is what's been helping him out. I'm not taking anything away from his ability. I'm just trying to give a little point of view from like what's maybe helped him so far this year. Yeah, so Calais Campbell is my runner-up. But yeah, I like DeMarcus Lawrence so far for my midseason Defensive Player of the Year with 10.5 sacks. My Offensive Rookie in the Year, this one's going to be a two-man race, I believe. It's going to come down to Kareem Hunt, and it's going to come down to Leonard Fournette. Right now, I'm going to give the edge to Kareem Hunt for the midseason Offensive Rookie of the Year. Right now, he's second in the league with 717 yards, and he's sixth in the league with 4 touchdowns. And once Spencer Ware went down, I think it was preseason. Yeah, he went down preseason. We weren't really sure what Kareem Hunt was or how he was going to do, but Andy Reid told us, you know what, that's going to be our starter. So, yeah. And he's been explosive this season. For whoever drafted him in fantasy football, I'm sure whoever got him has got to be the top of their league so far, because this guy has just been incredible. He's quick, he's good with his cuts, and he's just an explosive running back. He's perfect for that Kansas City offense. They like to play fast. Like you see that with guys like Tyreek Hill and those other receivers. And they got guys like Travis Kelce, who, if they do need to slow it down or whatnot and get some first downs, boom, you give it to Kelce. But Kareem has been perfect for that offense, and I don't see, there's no way when Spencer Ware, if he ever does come back, like, it's Kareem's Hunt job from now on. And he's just been explosive so far this season. And Leonard Fournette, he's pretty much Jacksonville's entire offense, okay? Blake Bortles I'm going to say right now, Blake Bortles, to me, he's not a good quarterback, okay? He's just a guy where you hope he doesn't make enough mistakes to where it hurts the offense, okay? Leonard Fournette is second among rookies, obviously behind Kareem Hunt and rush yards with 596, and like he's about 100 yards off of Kareem Hunt, but that could be due to the fact where teams are now going to start stacking the box against Leonard Fournette because they know that he's that offense right there. Blake Bortles is not going to beat you or anything like that, so there's no reason to really prepare and play all kinds of different coverages against the Jacksonville Jaguars. You need to stack the box against them, and even when they're doing that, even with them doing that, he's still averaging 99 yards a game. Okay, he's got 6 more carries than Hunt, which is a little, he's averaging 4.6 yards a carry. And then he's got more touchdowns than Hunt, though. He's got 6. And his longest run of the season is a 90-yard run. And he's got his percentages on first down, getting first downs, is about 18.5% when he gets the ball. So he's been a real stud this season, but so far, I like Kareem Hunt for my midseason Rookie of the Year. But once it comes down to like the real awards and whatnot, it's going to be close between them. But we'll see how it goes. And then for Defensive Rookie in the Year, I was really struggling with making this pick because I wasn't really sure who I wanted to pick. It came down to TJ Watt and Marcus May. TJ Watt has 28 tackles, 4 sacks, 5 pass deflections, and 1 interception. And I'm not sure if the Steelers like to classify him as an outside linebacker or a defensive end, but he's just been really solid for him. That was like him, and he must have learned from JJ Watt or something, because that dude he's a beast so far this season, TJ Watt. He's just been incredible. He's getting to the quarterback. He does everything for them. When I was watching him against Detroit Sunday night, he's doing well, dropping into coverage and all that. He does everything well so far. And then Marcus May, he's a safety for the Jets right now. He's got 39 tackles, 4 pass deflections, and 2 interceptions, and he's just been lights out also. Him and Jamal Adams have really had that secondary on lock for most of the season. The Jets defense has really played well this season, and you can really thank it to Marcus May and Jamal Adams. But since I have Marcus May as my runner-up, I'm going to talk a little bit more about him. I think let me double check. He should be right up there in tackles. I think he might be first or second in tackles for rookies. And as far as like pass deflections go, he's a safety, so he's not really going to get, he's second right now in tackles, right behind Kendall Beckwith from Tampa Bay, who has 47. And Marcus May has 42 total tackles, actually, now that it's updated after this week. He has 4 pass deflections, and as a safety, and 2 interceptions. And as a safety, you're not really getting the ball thrown at you that much because you're a safety and stuff. The ball's more going to the corners. But for him to have 4 pass deflections and 2 interceptions is really encouraging, and I'm sure the Jets are really excited about that. So that's right now. That's it for my midseason awards. I'm not going to do a Coach of the Year award, just mainly because I feel like it's way too early. I mean, obviously it's kind of hypocritical since we're doing player awards and whatnot, but I feel like coaches and stuff, they still have time to fix things and all that. So I'm going to wait to do that till the end of the season. But so just to summarize it all up, for my midseason MVP, I have Carson Wentz. And then Offensive Player of the Year, I have Le'Veon Bell. Defensive Player of the Year, DeMarcus Lawrence. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Kareem Hunt. And then Defensive Rookie of the Year, TJ Watt. But really, that could be interchangeable. Him and Marcus May have just been lights out so far this season for their respective teams. So that's going to wrap it up for this segment. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about this Monday night game coming up between Denver and Kansas City. So stay tuned.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Alright, welcome back, and to finish off today's show, we're going to preview the Monday night game between Denver and Kansas City. So I'm just going to give a little background on how each team did last week, and then we'll get into the matchups this week, stats and all that stuff, and then even look to who each team plays next week and go from there. Alright, so last week, let's start off with Kansas City. They lost 31-30 to Oakland in Oakland last week, and that game was that was a weird game, just only by the way how it ended. There was about maybe 4 plays, I think. I can't remember exactly how many, but it was about 5 or 4 plays where each team, it was just a penalty on each team. So Oakland had plenty of chances to come back and win. And eventually on that 4th or 5th chance, I can't remember exactly which one it was, but on that chance, they ended up getting a touchdown from Michael Crabtree. And that's what brought KC down. And it was a really good game throughout. And KC is just one of those divisional rivalry games where your defense is playing well throughout the season and your offense is playing well, but I mean, it really doesn't matter once it comes against your division foe. So Kansas City's defense ended up giving 31 in that game, and that's why they lost. And then Denver's looked lost so far on offense, and they just haven't had that explosiveness on defense so far this season. That could do with the offense. So yeah, last week they went to LA to play the Chargers and they lost 21-0. And I mean, 3 touchdowns, that's really not something where the defense should hang their head on. Okay, because I mean, holding a team to 20 points or around there is always good. The offense just needs to step up and do their job and score some points. But like I was talking about earlier, I believe it was in the 3rd segment. I believe it was the 3rd. But yeah, Denver's offensive line has just been brutal so far this season, and Trevor Siemian just really hasn't had a chance to prove himself or to really produce or anything like that. And even with the offensive line not playing well, CJ Anderson was doing well in the beginning of the season, and now so far he just really hasn't played all too well. So we'll see how it goes. But for stats and all that stuff, Alex Smith right now is at 1,979 passing yards and 16 touchdowns, which I believe is 3 touchdowns off of the league leader, Carson Wentz. Kareem Hunt, he's had an explosive first year as a rookie. He's got 717 yards, which is second in the league, 43 behind Le'Veon Bell, and he's got 4 touchdowns, which I believe is it's about 2 or 3 off the league leader also. Tyreek Hill, he's not a receiver who's going to have a lot of catches or a lot of yards, but he's going to make explosive plays for you. He's got 36 receptions, 515 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And Trevor Siemian so far this season has 1,471 yards, 8 touchdowns, and one of the biggest problems with him is 7 interceptions. It's not always good when you're only 1 interception off from matching your touchdowns. But we all know that. CJ Anderson, like I said, he started off really well in the beginning of the season, and then he's just started to fall off, and that could honestly, I think that's due to the offensive line play. He's only got 391 yards and 1 touchdown, and he's just been real disappointing just the last few games. And Demaryius Thomas has 30 receptions and 389 yards, and he's a solid receiver, but he really hasn't been the same since Peyton Manning left, and that could be due to who's playing quarterback. And I'm not trying to knock Trevor Siemian, but it's a huge drop off once you go from Peyton Manning to Trevor Siemian. And as far as injuries go, Justin Houston for Kansas City, he's questionable. Emmanuel Sanders is questionable. Linebacker for Denver, Todd Davis is questionable. Derek Wolfe for the lineman for Denver, also questionable. And then their offensive lineman, Donald Stevenson, is out. So, I mean, that's not going to help with one of your offensive linemen being out. Whether or not he's a good player or not is really up to whoever to decide. But I mean, once your starting guys are out, it's really not helping out much. So I think this game is really going to come down to. It's going to come down to. I don't think it's going to be a close game at all. Really, I feel like it's going to be however many points Kansas City is able to get up against Denver's defense. They need to hit at least 17, I believe, in order for them to come out with a win, because Denver's defense, even though they haven't really been as scary or as great as they have been the last couple of years, they're still a pretty solid defense, and they're not one that you need to overlook or even underestimate. Because whenever Von Miller's on the opposite side, you should always be on your toes, ready, and all that. So yeah, it's going to come down to Kansas City's offense versus Denver's defense, and I don't really think Tyreek Hill is going to have all that good of a game this week. It's going to be kind of interesting, because if Trevor Siemian and the offense can get it going at least a little bit, then this game could be close. And I'm not sure. This is a weird game. This is almost like a trap game for Kansas City, because they think they're favored by 7 points, and they should be, and all that stuff. And they're playing like one of the best teams in the AFC right now. Well, they are one of the best teams in the AFC so far this season. So this is going to be a tough game for them, I think, now that I'm thinking about it, because Denver, they have weapons on offense. It's just going to come down to whether or not that offensive line can just do half decent, okay? Because they have not been good at all so far this season, okay? Because when CJ Anderson, in the beginning of the season, there's a correlation. When CJ Anderson plays well, Denver is able to also play well and win some games. When CJ Anderson does not get going, then they're not gonna win games. So the offensive line just needs to open up some holes, or even just the wide receivers need to block so Sam Anderson can run outside the tackles. Because whenever he has a good game, like I said, dude, Denver's always in it. So it's just an odd game to me. I mean, I feel like Alex Smith, he's an MVP candidate so far this season too. I know I was talking earlier and I said that Carson Wentz was my midseason MVP and Brady was my runner-up, but that doesn't mean that Alex Smith isn't right there. He's right behind Brady, and it's really it's going to come down to, like I said, the offense and the defense. I think I'm going to go. Actually, let's talk matchups first before I give my prediction. Okay, Tyreek Hill versus Denver secondary. That's going to be a solid matchup, and that's really going to be. It's going to be one that's going to be real intriguing to me, because I feel like Denver's corners, they haven't really all been that good this season. You could tell Aqib Talib has been a little bit frustrated so far this season too, but I feel like that they're going to do well to shut him down. And if Todd Davis plays, then a good matchup is going to be between him and those linebackers versus Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is probably, he is one of the best tight ends so far this season. He's playing really well along with Zach Ertz and all those guys. He's up there with them. So Travis Kelce, I mean, you always got to watch out for him. And I feel like if, you know what? I'm going to say this right here, okay? If Kansas City scores touchdowns today, it's not going to come from the receivers. It's going to come from, if Alex Smith is going to throw a touchdown, it's going to be Travis Kelce who's catching it. I don't expect the receivers to really do much against this Broncos secondary, because, like I said, Chris Harris Jr. and Aqib Talib, they're shut down guys, and they're shut down guys. I don't expect the receivers to do much today. So it's really going to come down to, if Alex Smith is going to throw a touchdown, it's going to be to Travis Kelce. And if the linebackers can limit him, then you know what? I don't really like Kansas City's chances if Travis Kelce can't get going. Because Denver's defensive line is good enough to where Kareem Hunt, I think he's going to get his, but I don't think it's going to be how it's been so far this last season. I'm going to put a little cap on him today. I'm going to say he goes no more than 85 yards today. And I know 85 yards is kind of high and whatnot, but for how he's been playing so far this season, I think he's averaging around 104 yards a game. So for him to get 85 would be a plus for Denver. So yeah, I'll get into my prediction later, but yeah, as far as those matchups, I like Denver's secondary against Kansas City's receivers, and I feel like Travis Kelce versus Denver's linebackers is going to be a toss-up, and I like Denver's defensive line against Kareem Hunt. And as for Denver's offense versus Kansas City's defense, if Kansas City's defensive line does well, then I mean, it's really not much that the offense is going to be able to do, because you're only as good as your offensive line, I feel, in the NFL. You see teams like Dallas, one of the best offensive lines, and they're able to put up points constantly every game, and that's what keeps them always in it. The Raiders, they haven't been all that, how do I say it? They haven't been all that good so far this season, but their offensive line is able to keep them in games, except for the game against Buffalo. But that was just pretty much a throwaway game for the Raiders. Sorry about that. That was pretty much a bad game for the Raiders. But yeah, if your offensive line is good in the NFL, you're gonna be able to compete. And as far as that goes, I think I can't go against Kansas City's defensive line only because Denver's offensive line has been that bad. But let's play devil's advocate and say that Denver's offensive line does play well against Kansas City. Then I like CJ Anderson against Kansas City's linebackers because CJ Anderson is he's a quick back and he does well when he has a chance to. And as far as the Denver's receivers and Kansas City secondary goes, I like Kansas City secondary in that, mainly because I don't really trust Trevor Siemian, even if his offensive line was to play well today, or Monday night, I should say. So it's really gonna come down to which defense can step up, and because these are both really good defenses. Like I said, Denver's is always out there playing well, and Kansas City, I'm not sure if they're going to have Justin Houston today, but even if they don't, I still like how they've been playing so far this season. Marcus Peters is a shutdown corner, and he's a guy who's going to get in your face. And I feel like, you know what? If Emmanuel Sanders does not play today, then I don't really like Denver's chances at all because I'm sure that Marcus Peters is going to be covering Demaryius Thomas for most of the game. And I'm taking Marcus Peters in that matchup constantly, just every time. Marcus Peters, he's going to shut down Demaryius Thomas, and it's really going to come down to offensive line play for Denver. If they don't show up, then Kansas City doesn't, or if they don't show up, then Denver doesn't have really a chance of winning. So I think for predictions, I'm going to go with the smart pick. I'm going to go Kansas City. I'm going to pick them. I'm going to go 21-10. Yeah, I'm going to go 21-10. Okay, Denver, like I said, Denver has a solid defense. You might be, 21 points, that's quite a bit or whatever. But Denver's defense, I feel they're just going to be on the field way too much. So it's really not, it's going to be difficult for them to have constant stops. They're going to come up with stops, and that's not really going to be a problem. But like I said, there's just going to be those drives where the defensive line is tired, the linebackers are tired, the corners are tired. So they're going to give up those touchdowns to where it's just not going to work out for them. And I don't really trust Denver's offensive line at all to even maybe think about them having a good game. So, yeah, I'm going to go 21-10 KC. And KC is just going to further up that lead in that division. And I don't really see Oakland or anyone else coming back and trying to fight for that division. So I feel like KC, I know it's early, but I feel like they've already got that locked up. So, I mean, let's get into next week, their games. So after this week, Denver's going to have another tough test against Philadelphia in Philadelphia, and I'll talk about that game next week, but I really don't like, or possibly later this week, but I don't really like Denver's chances against Philly at all. Denver's defense, like I said, like I was saying earlier, I mean, Denver's defense is going to keep them in that game, but like I said, it's going to come down to the offense, and Philly doesn't have a pushover defense, and Kansas City is going to head to Dallas next week, and if Zeke doesn't play, then I'm sure Kansas City's going to come out with a win. But if Zeke does play, then I expect it to be not a big shootout, but it's going to be a high-scoring game. So we'll see how that all goes. But yeah, like I said, it's going to today for matchups. I like, I like Denver's corner secondary against Kansas City's wide receivers. It's a toss-up between Travis Kelce and Denver's linebackers, and I'm taking Denver's defensive line versus Kareem Hunt. But like I said, none of that matters if Denver's offensive line doesn't play well, which I don't think they will. So just to repeat it, I got Kansas City over Denver for Monday night, 21-10. And that's going to wrap it up for today's show. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.